We know that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But red flags don't always fly up to warn us to walk away. So, how do you know when an investment is the real deal and when it's really a flagrant fraud? Jim Lineweaver is here with advice to help us avoid costly mistakes. Jim is a certified financial planner with the Lineweaver Financial Group. Hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
All right, so what are the top kinds of investment frauds that we should be really aware of?
Yeah, because there's a ton of them out there, so you really got to be careful. And the internet has not made this easy. But it's basically going to come down to three different main issues that are out there. One's going to be your pyramid or your Ponzi scheme.
Okay.
There's also something called pump and dump, which we'll talk about. Yep. And then lastly, there's a lot of people from offshore, type of areas or countries that are trying to get at American investors and their money. So
the money.
Exactly.
That's the key there. Yeah. So, let's do them one at a time. We'll start with the pyramid or the Ponzi schemes. That's what Bernie Madoff made. He's famous for. So, how exactly does that work?
Yeah. Well, what ends up happening is it's a pyramid scheme where they're going to pull investors' money and they may try to promise you some type of rate of return, but as the owner of this whole thing is taking money off the top, he's relying on new money come in to keep the wheel going or that greasy wheel turning, and that's the problem. So some of the things that you want to do is just make sure you're never cutting a check to individual people like that, and we'll provide some other tips at the end of the show here today.
Well, that's good. How about pump and dump? I mean, is that like they get you all pumped up to invest, and then as soon as you get in there, they dump you?
Yeah, and it's not just a phone call anymore where you're getting a click. Now today with the internet, what they're going to do is in blogs and different things that are out there, they're going to buy some penny little stock for 2 or 3 cents, and then they're going to get a bunch of news out there making it look really good. You got to get on this latest and greatest deal. You can buy 1,000 shares for a little bit of money.
And if it's on the internet, it's got to be true.
It's got to be true, right? Yeah. And then they're going to pump that stock up, get a lot of people in because of the demand, and then they're going to pull out and left everybody else with an empty bag.
So they make the money.
Yes. And they're gone, and there's really no substance to the story behind the investment.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting new one to me. And how about offshore scams? I mean, we all know Cayman Islands. That means trouble, right? Is it something different than that?
Well, you're just going to stretch that out to a little more depth because it can really come from any country. You hear about people that, are stuck somewhere, or even sometimes if they raid your email, there's been emails that could come from friends saying that they were stuck overseas and they can't get back, and so that's all fraudulent. So be very suspect through anything that comes by email, and phone solicitation is dropped off dramatically with the do not call list and everything, which is good.
Yeah,
but we don't have that same protection on the internet these days. So be careful. Whenever you're dealing with something like that, you got to check on the substance and really do your due diligence today more than ever before.
Okay. Well, are there any tip-offs that we could be looking at that you might be falling for one of these kind of scams?
Yeah, sure. One is really high guarantees, and that's what you got to be careful. Hey, I'm going to give you 20% a year and guarantee you that for 10 or 20 years. That's huge. Obviously, it's too good to be true, especially in a huge volatile market. There's also overly consistent returns, which means I am going to be, promising you something, or here, look at my track record, and you really got to provide some more validity to that, or do some background checking, because you can promise the world, but the delivery is where it all comes into play. And then really accounting discrepancies, because in the Madoff case, there were statements that were printed. You did receive them at home, and what ends up happening is doing two things. One, never cut a check to the individual companies. You always make them, or to the advisor house, make them to the known institution, and double check your statements with what's online. Make sure those transactions really match up.
For more information, too, you have some seminars coming up, right?
We do, yeah. We have 2 covering this and many more topics. It's going to be on Tuesday, February 18th at 1 p.m. and also Thursday, February 20th at 6:30 p.m. and it is free to all your viewers to attend.
All right. That's really great information. Now, you might think, I would never fall for a scam, but scammers are more clever and more careful than they ever were. So follow Jim's advice to avoid financial fraud. Come to the seminar. And if you need even more help, give him a call. His number's coming up next.
For more information, call the Lineweaver Financial Group at 1-888-313-4009 or log on to www.lineweaver.net. Next, making sure the beat goes on.